Hey, what's happening, everybody? Tyler here with your movie fix. Today we're going to be taking a look at my favorite genre, sci-fi. Now, sci-fi has been around in film for the last 50, 60 years. It's quite a long time. So many movies have came out in that span of time. So today I want to really focus on the modern sci-fi movies, which I'm going to be considering from a time period of about 1999 till now. And I'll cover some classic movies eventually, but I just really wanted to get to some modern sci-fi movies. I've just been in that mood, been watching a lot of them, and I was really eager to make this list, so let's just get right into it. Now, coming in at number 10 is District 9. This is Neil Blomkamp's directorial debut. Peter Jackson produced, and it was a surprise hit both critically and financially. We follow our main character, Wickus, who is a government official dealt the task of evicting an alien race forced to live in slum conditions. Things change dramatically after he's exposed to their biotechnology, and now he must help their cause. And one of the things that Neil Blomkamp did so well is that you will actually kind of hate our main character Wickus, but as the movie goes on, you'll come to sympathize with him as the action unfolds, as more characters come into play, and as he is forced to change for the situations. And this was actually a very profitable movie. On just a $30 million budget, this movie brought in $210 million worldwide, which is no small feat for your first time directing a movie in Hollywood. It's a pretty big feat there. And this movie showed that you can make a really great modern sci-fi action-heavy movie without breaking the studio's wallet. And that was a really cool thing to see. If you watch this movie, the visuals that they were able to use, the things they were able to do with all the weaponry, with the aliens, you wouldn't really be able to guess that this is a $30 million movie, and it really makes you question why they can't put out more movies like that on a budget like this. So that's why I'm going to be putting District 9 at number 10. At number 9, we're going to go with Edge of Tomorrow, the sci-fi Groundhog Day. Army Officer Cage, who is the face of war propaganda against an invading alien race, is reduced to private and forced to be in the thick of war. A fluke in battle grants him the ability to relive the same day each time he dies, and this is the key to winning the war and saving Earth. And Tom Cruise is so refreshing in this movie, because he doesn't just start out as this perfect badass like he is in so many roles. In fact, he's actually a bit of a coward and he doesn't really know what he's doing, and we get to actually watch him grow and evolve. And this might be my favorite Tom Cruise role that he's done, maybe outside of like Mission Impossible, but it's really cool that he isn't the standard Tom Cruise role and we actually get to grow with him. And it's actually a great juxtaposition to Emily Blunt's Rita, aka the Full Metal Bitch. A fantastic cinematic pairing I didn't even know that I needed, mixed with incredible chemistry and action. And something that was actually really cool about the production design and the set design and all of that with this movie were the jackets that everyone had to wear, the Earth soldiers, which were these big mech suits, which they actually had to practically make and they wore in this movie. And something in all the training that they had to do was they had to make it look like these things were actually assisting them in running and in battle, when in fact they were actually weighing them down. These were like 80-pound suits all around them. Some really cool behind the scenes featurettes on this movie, and there were a lot of like Saving Private Ryan kind of vibes to it with the storming of the beach, and you'll notice that you'll relive that moment plenty of times. This is actually a pretty funny movie, has a lot of great moments of levity, but it's also very serious and grounded in sci-fi. And this, on top of that, it has a fantastic original score. Now, coming in at number 8 is Moon. This is not only a great sci-fi movie, but a true independent film. Now, this is a $5 million budget movie that brought in under $10 million worldwide. This is a true example of you don't have to have a box office smash to bring in a good movie. Now, this is more of an issue of it being an independent film, not getting the proper marketing, and not being put in nearly as many theaters as a blockbuster. But like I said, this is very much an independent film, very limited release, but it delivers on so much. With just about a 3-person on-screen cast, astronaut Sam Bell, played by Sam Rockwell, is the sole worker on a moon base responsible for farming minerals to send to Earth, accompanied only by his trusty ship robot, Gertie, played by Kevin Spacey. An accident occurs, leading Sam to discover there are actually clones of him on the moon base. He must work together with one to discover how and why of this, before it's too late. Now, Sam Rockwell is actually playing two polar opposites of himself so great. That is no easy task to not only act, but play off of yourself or a double with nobody really there, on top of delivering a great emotional performance. Now, coming in at number 7, I'm going to go with Star Wars The Force Awakens. And if there was ever a movie that had any pressure on it, it was going to be this one. Now, unlike Star Wars returning with the prequels, this is going to be a direct sequel to Return of the Jedi, boasting both the old cast who we all love with Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, but also bringing on a lot of newcomers. Now, Star Wars has made a triumphant return both critically, financially, among fans and general audiences alike, and I really felt like J.J. Abrams was the man for the job here. The First Order has risen in place of the Empire decades after its defeat, introducing our villain Kylo Ren, who I feel is like what Anakin probably should have been, an upgraded version, and I felt the intimidation and the internal struggle that Adam Driver delivered, making him an even more active villain than, dare I say it, Darth Vader ever really was. Daisy Ridley's Rey and John Boyega's Finn were great additions to the Star Wars story, and I really can't wait to see more of them, and I think they delivered a pretty great performance. Now, some people will almost fault this movie for thinking that there are so many similarities to A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie, but I actually think it borrows elements from all three of the original movies, which was pretty necessary. This movie had a great sense of familiarity, and it really felt like it did take place after Return of the Jedi, and I think borrowing elements from all of those films and bringing that sense of familiarity back to the public conscious was really necessary, and I think it hit the mark, and I'm glad that we have Star Wars back. Now, coming in at number 6, The Matrix. Computer hacker Neo, who is approached by a group of rebels who challenge not only his, but the audience's sense of reality. We go even farther into the rabbit hole as Neo discovers he is the key to the war against those who control our perceived reality. Now, although I am mostly going to be talking about the first single Matrix movie, I am going to cheat just a little bit, because this is my list and I can do that. And I actually really enjoy all three of the Matrix movies pretty equally. And I know I'm among the few that think that way, with a lot of people thinking that 2 and 3 are both steps down from the first one, but I kind of disagree and think they might be slight steps above. Although I really enjoy it, and The Matrix has done so much for the sci-fi genre, and it's really changed how modern action movies are filmed now. And I think the trick to really enjoying 2 and 3 is it's going to be an acquired taste for the Wachowskis, and if you can accept how abstract and strange the movies get as we go deeper into The Matrix, you're going to have a good time. Now, Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, and Hugo Weaving will forever be immortalized into movie history thanks to The Matrix and everything that it's done for both the sci-fi genre and action movies. Now, this movie is filled with more than a handful of iconic scenes, from Neo's office escape to the interrogation with Agent Smith, which has given me a irrational fear of anyone touching my belly button, to taking the pill to go into the rabbit hole, dojo training, and our final incredible subway fight with Agent Smith, on top of this amazing, wonderful original score that The Matrix has. At number 5, Interstellar. From superhero epics, fantasy, action, thrillers, and dramas, Christopher and Jonathan Nolan took a swing at sci-fi, and it was something pretty special. Set vaguely into the near future, our world is dying. Blight has spread across the world, and our crops are quickly dwindling, throwing the world into a dust bowl with no hope on the horizon. The US has abandoned NASA, or so the public thinks. The last attempt to ensure the survival of the human race is to send a team of explorers into our local black hole and find another hospitable planet. With tremendous action, phenomenal visuals, and great performances all around, with Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and Jessica Chastain, who I thought really brought it in this movie. And I think this may actually be Hans Zimmer's best work with his music, his original score. He loves to work with Christopher Nolan, specifically the song Mountains, if you want to look that up here on YouTube, by Hans Zimmer. Just amazing, beautiful music that totally complemented everything that Christopher Nolan was going for in this movie. Now, something else that I want to talk about, which I guess would be a little sacrilegious among the sci-fi community, is that I would like to compare this movie to 2001: A Space Odyssey just a little bit, in that this movie will not be as influential as 2001: A Space Odyssey ever is. Like, that is never going to happen, because without it, we wouldn't have movies like this. But I do think this is a better movie. I think it took a lot of those elements that were more abstract in 2001, and I thought they delivered them and put them on screen better. They took these really abstract ideas and really helped us connect to them, and they made them a little more concrete and believable, especially with what's going on with going into the fifth dimension. I think Christopher Nolan really crafted a really beautiful movie, going around the concept of love, of time travel. Everything that's going on in this film I thought was executed a lot better than 2001, although I recognize that it's never going to be as influential as that film was. And the number 4 spot is going to go to X-Men: Days of Future Past. Now, this is the only comic book film that really made it into this list, because comic book films do tend to fall under a lot of subgenres. I felt like I picked this one because it had the strongest sci-fi elements on top of being an amazing film. Now, this was the first of the X-Men franchise to blend our favorite cast members from all of the original movies, along with the new people from First Class. A war between humans and mutants has been waging, and it does not bode well for the mutants, thanks to the sentinels that the humans have been using. Kitty Pryde is tasked with sending Wolverine's consciousness 50 years into the past to unite the mutants and prevent this from ever happening. You have an apocalyptic future, time travel, and oppressed mutants trying to save the world. I mean, how many more sci-fi elements can you really pack into a movie and really pull it off? Our returning favorite for Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, was great as always, on top of bringing in the chemistry mixed with James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as both Professor Xavier and Magneto. I thought they played well with the older cast, which we really only got to see them interact with Hugh Jackman. And although we did get a little bit of that in First Class, but seeing them all together on screen was just really great. I thought they were the three that really delivered the best performances in this movie. And, one of the best scenes in the film, and probably the best in the entire X-Men franchise, is the Quicksilver scene that takes place in the Pentagon. Just pure gold. Now, I do want to talk about one misconception that I think this movie has surrounding it, with what people think is a big plot hole around the Sentinels are based around Mystique's DNA, her mutant ability, and so they are taking other mutants' powers and using them, whereas Mystique can only change her shape. She's a shapeshifter. But that's not the point. They clearly state in the movie that her genes were the key to unlocking the abilities for the Sentinels. They're not saying they just straight up took Mystique's genes and voila, we put them in the Sentinels, but why do they, steal powers and replicate them and stuff like that? That's not the case. They said that her genes were the key, so that was based off of another 50 years of studying her genes to create the Sentinels and what they are now. So I just wanted to clear that up. Now, I thought this was a very solid trilogy for these 3 new X-Men movies, and I really like that this movie relied more on an emotional ending instead of a spectacle. And coming in at number 3 is going to be Children of Men. Now, this movie may technically have some of the weaker sci-fi elements compared to others on this list, but it really makes up for it in the story and characters, and it is still a sci-fi movie nonetheless. The world has become infertile, and a child hasn't been born in 18 years, with nothing set to change this. Europe is drowning in fascism and xenophobia, blaming all foreigners and refugees for the world's current problems, to the point that they're even including suicide kits that are handed out in civilian rations. Theo, our main character and ex-activist, agrees to help transport a miraculously pregnant woman to safe haven out of Europe. And something that Alfonso Cuarón was able to do so incredibly well in this movie, with a lot of long, panning, handheld shots. He did a lot of things that are going to be revolutionary for how certain things are filmed in movies. There's a great 8 or 9 minute one-shot take of them inside of a car. They made this incredible rig that you can see in behind the scenes with the camera inside of this whole built rig where they're able to go from person to person inside this car, and a really long sequence on top of what we get at the end, which is I think a 12-minute one-shot take of action, a lot of explosions going on. You're following Theo around. Just incredible things that Alfonso Cuarón was able to do for the film industry, and that's why it's going to kind of earn its spot here at number 3, on top of being a very emotional, very good film. With no small thanks to Clive Owen, who is Theo, our main character, and even Michael Caine, who I really enjoyed his character. He was kind of like the classic hippie from the 60s. He's now an older guy, in a time where we really need these peace givers in the world. And there's even a lot of nods to Pink Floyd's Animals, and even to Animal Farm, the book. You'll see the little Easter eggs there, and there's a lot of those themes with sheep, the people being sheep, and the dogs and the pigs. You'll really notice that. So there's just a lot of very subtle things in this movie that Alfonso Cuarón did so good. Now, earning the number 2 spot is going to be Sunshine. Now, this is a film that has been recommended to me for so long by so many people that have just been telling me how great it is, and I decided to finally check it out for myself, specifically for this list. Now, this was a hard one to come up with number 1 and 2. This was normally going to be my number 1 pick because this movie just blew me away. I absolutely loved it, and we're going to be getting into it right now. Set not too far from now, Earth's sun is dying. A crew of 8 is sent into space for the second time in an effort to deliver a payload to revive our dying star. However, the crew's mission heads south after a mistake and several accidents. Now, this movie is incredibly beautiful with a lot of massive cinematography and a very bold score to accompany it, on top of great performances. Something this film does very well is you buy into the crew's chemistry right off the bat. You get the feeling that these people have been together for months, possibly years. They're working together, and this movie doesn't like to be very cliche. Something we've seen in many movies, many sci-fi movies of any genre, is when a group of people have to make a decision, and they go, let's call a vote. And they start to do that, and they stop and go, no, this isn't a democracy. We're a collection of scientists and astronauts. We can make an informed decision based on facts. And that was just so great to hear that. That was very refreshing. Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans, and Benedict Wong especially brought it. Great performances all around from them. They were definitely the standouts. On top of the other cast, everyone I thought really brought it, and this is my first Danny Boyle film, and I actually thought he did a tremendous job. This is written by Alex Garland. Just everything was A1 for me all across the board. Now, part of the beautiful directing in this film is that it foreshadows everyone's death. This is a very beautiful adventure film and thriller that has a lot of nods and takes a lot of inspiration from both Alien and 2001: A Space Odyssey. How can you pass up on that? Now, before we go into the number 1 movie on this list, like I said, there have been so many movies in this span of time that I just want to go over some honorable mentions of movies that didn't quite make the list, but I just have to name drop them because I felt like they were so good. Starting with Dredd, Pacific Rim, The Martian, Man of Steel, Minority Report, AI, Gravity, Guardians of the Galaxy, Revenge of the Sith, Yeah, I said it. I think Revenge of the Sith is actually a great movie and pretty underappreciated. Apes on Horses, aka Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Prometheus, Oblivion, which just barely didn't make it out to Edge of Tomorrow, Transformers, and Star Trek Into Darkness. And to top this list off, my number one pick for the modern sci-fi movies is going to go to Ex Machina. This was my favorite film of 2015, both written and directed by Alex Garland, who is the writer of both Dread and Sunshine. This was, I believe, his directorial debut. I could be wrong, but this is really something that put him on the map as a director. This was a beautifully crafted film. Programmer Caleb Smith, who works for the fictional equivalent of Google, wins a contest that allows him to spend a week with his company's genius CEO, Nate Bateman. Caleb quickly learns he's actually been chosen to participate in a Turing test to determine the awareness and capabilities of Ava, a beautiful AI. Is she as innocent as she seems? Ex Machina is very much an independent film and is very much shot that way in an intimate kind of way, but it has the ever-curious sci-fi element of artificial intelligence. Now, Alicia Vikander played her in such a subtle way that really made you feel like this AI is a believable character that you want to trust and help. And something this movie did so well was creating an atmosphere, from the production design of Nate's house to how Ava is, like her Wi-Fi kind of brain. The design of the artificial intelligence in this movie is all pretty great and very unique. That's something I love to see in sci-fi movies, is not being cliche, not borrowing too many elements from too many different things. And AI has been something that's been done over and over and over in many sci-fi films. So this was very refreshing to see how they were handling the animatronics and how this AI was going to look in this fictional reality. Now, this movie manages to be a character study that isn't afraid to be dark. It has its genuine fun moments while also delivering on the thrills, and dare I say it, is even a little sexy at times. But who is this movie a character study really on? Now, because this movie deals with a lot of questionable moral and ethical issues, it's the kind of film that's going to challenge you and make you question, who was the right guy here? Who was the good guy in this film? Who was right and who was wrong? And that's something that I really loved about it. On top of the many other elements between the classic artificial intelligence mixed with the amazing production design that's very unique, the great performances, and the very unique atmosphere of the entire film, that's why I'm going to put Ex Machina at number 1 on my list for modern sci-fi movies. Comment down below, guys. I want to know, what do you think of all of these movies? What would your top 10 be? I really want to hear your feedback and your comments down below. Sound off. This has been your Movie Fix, guys. Be sure to subscribe for more movie news, movie reviews, top 10 lists just like this, and I'll see you guys on the next video.